शिवशङ्करमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करम् शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। ओम सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांति। ओम श्री परमात्मने नमः। So we were discussing in the last class chapter 13 verse number 2. क्षेत्रम क्षेत्रज्ञ छापिमां विद्धि सर्वक्षेत्रेषु भारत। क्षेत्र क्षेत्र तयो ज्ञानम तत्व ज्ञानम मतम ममा. So that is what Sri Krishna says in this verse. So according to the Shruti, according to the Shastram, Kshetraha and Kshetragya are two different things. Knower and knower of the field. Even though they are two different things, they are not distant. They are not distant from each other, but they are distinct from each other. Because one is the Anatma, other is the Atma. This is what Shruti is already established. So, there is a Purva Paksha. We saw the objections raised to the Purva Paksha, where we say that the Shastram says Jiva and Ishvara are not different. They are one and the same. Because there is nothing really called Jiva other than Ishvara. So Jiva is just a title or a status being given because of the Agyanam or the Avidya which is present in the Jiva. The one which has got a body mentions complex, and due to superimposition or the Adhyasaha, this title Jiva is sitting there. In reality, Jiva doesn't have existence outside of Ishvara. This is what the view of the Shruti and Shrutis. We got a lot of quotations from the Upanishads which says this. Consistently in every Upanishad, in every Shruti you see, it is not different. But there's always a Purva Paksha, there's an objection raised by Vaisheshika or from a Vimamsa philosophy who are action-oriented people. They believe in action, and for them everything has to be objectified. They cannot accept anything, a fact which cannot be perceived or cannot be experienced or cannot be enjoyed. So when we say the Atma is Akarta, Abhokta, so there is no doership and there is no enjoyership. This is something they are not able to accept this fact. So there is 4 objections or 5 objections. First one we saw was the Kshetragya cannot be the same as Ishvaraha. It means you cannot just equate one to one. Example, a tree is part of a forest, but the forest is not a tree. So the forest is not a single tree. Just as you can say the ocean is made up of drops of water, but you can't say the drop of water is equal to the ocean. So these are all very twisted way of the view of the words. Even today's class also, in the Upadhyaya Shastri class, we saw how a Purva Pakshi interprets the words, or how a person can misuse the words and just take the literal meaning of the words. So this is the first objection raised by the Purva Paksha. The second was that the Jiva is only a part of the Ishvara, it is not the whole. So Jiva is only part of Ishvara. It is not the complete Ishvara itself. So if you have the premise like this, because the person is having a view that Jiva is only a part of Ishvara, it is not the complete Ishvara itself, there will always be a division or distance between Jiva and Ishvara all the time. Which means the Jiva will have to invoke the grace of the Ishvara, and when the grace is sought, the Jiva looks forward to a place where there are no afflictions. So this is corroborated by all the Dvaitis, the Dvaita philosophy also. Even in Dvaitam, Vishishta Advaitam also it is there. Because in the Bhulokaha there are afflictions. It is governed by Ragadveshaha, pain and pleasure, Samsara Dukkham is there. So the Jiva prays to the Ishvara in the Dvaiti philosophy to seek the grace. And through bhakti, this grace is sought. And by the Bhagavan's grace and Ishvara's grace, the Jiva is blessed. And with this view, the Jiva goes to a better place, say Vaikuntham or Shivalokam. So this is the view held by the Purvapaksha Siddhanti also. Because this is something easy for them to accept. But they are not willing to accept the view that Jiva is equal to Jiva is same as Ishvara. So when you don't have the vision, then you are bound to commit the Dvaita philosophy only. You can never go anywhere else. There will only be two things. Just as the wave is nothing but water. The wave belongs to the ocean. So both the wave and the ocean are only names. Without the ocean, there is no wave, correct? Without the ocean, there is no wave. And without the water, there is no ocean. But for both the wave and the ocean are only Mithya. They are not the truth. The water is Satya. But as long as you see these three things, you see the wave, you see the ocean, you'll never be able to see the water, because these two things are the one which you see immediate. And water you cannot perceive, because water is something not perceivable directly. You perceive the water through the wave and the ocean, correct? You surmise that there is water because there is wave and the ocean. But directly you cannot see through the yukti, through the shrutihi and the shravanam, only you will be able to analyze this. The Purvapaksha Siddhanti doesn't use, he uses yukti, of course. He uses logic. But the logic is not supported by Shrutihi. Or the Shruti is using also is for the benefit of the person only. He quotes from Bhagavad Gita also, Namai Vamso Jivaloke Jivabhut Sanatanaha. Right? So, Mamai Amshaha Jivaloke means one Amshaha of this Ishvara is in this Jivalokaha. So Jiva is only an Amshaha. It is never the full. But we do not say this. Shruti says that you are not the Amshaha, you are the whole. This is the view of the Shastra. So there is always a difference between the Purvapaksha Siddhantaha and the Advaita Siddhanta philosophy. Second one. The third one, if the Jiva is not Ishvaraha, then Ishvara also is subject to samsara. So Jiva is already samsara. Jiva is already in samsara. And if we equate Jiva and Ishvara, then the Shastra study will become useless. Because Ishvara cannot give what he is requiring. So the whole purpose of studying of the Shastram will be negative. Because he thinks Ishvara also is subject to modifications. And because it is subject to attributes, it is governed by samsara. So Ishvara also has got some amount of samsara. Because until now, they considered the Atma to be a Bhokta. So see this. They have considered so far the Purva Paksha Atma to be a Bhokta. So for them, Atma is not consciousness. Atma is an agent. An agent means what? A person who does the job. So Atma is the one who does the job of seeing. Atma is the one who does the job of walking. So for them, the action is taken as the Atma being performing the action. This is the view of the Purva-Pakshi. This is not our view. Hope it is not your view also. Your view should not be like this. Sometimes the study of the Shastram requires this analytical view. In the Brahma Sutra Bhashyam also, it is the same thing. The statement is, one statement is made by the Purva-Paksha. A refutation is given for the same statement by the Advaita Siddhanti. Another objection is raised. So by raising the objection, the clarity of the person increases. Otherwise, if you accept things as they are, then it's possible that you could be subject to some questions later on. It might arise. How it is possible that I see two things, but there are not two things. So if you see a wave and if you see the wave and the foam on the wave, you cannot say that is not the truth at the moment, correct? You cannot negate it. It is definitely there. Even for Advaiti and Advaiti also, both of them see the wave and the foam. But Advaiti stops there, doesn't analyze beyond this. So the Advaiti believes that is Satyam. The wave is the truth because it is something he can perceive, he can touch, he can feel, he can smell the water itself, the salty water, everything can smell. So it is something to be taken as Satyam. But he cannot see the water because he just takes for granted that the wave is that's what it is. So the Advaiti just goes one step beyond. He resolves the wave also in the water, thereby removing the Dvaitam philosophy. So the Jiva also is merged with the Ishvara in the same way. So this is third objection we have. So if Ishvara is a samsari, supposing Ishvara becomes a samsari just like Jiva, maximum what we can do is we can have a union with him. We can say have some understanding or we can reach to him at some level. But it cannot be solving the samsara problem at all because he will only be giving. In fact, in the Bhashyam, Adi Shankara says that as long as it is like, if you have a domesticated cow in your house or a domesticated, any dog or any animal you got, as long as you keep feeding that cow, the cow is used for doing all the work, right? Giving milk, tilling the land, and whatever work is required for you. If you have a oil machine, whatever you have, you can use for anything what you want. And you just feed him fodder, little bit here and there. And he looks upon you as a Devata. So you are the Ishvara and the cow is the Jiva there. So there is a grace given by you for the cow to exist. The same way, the Devatas are also in the same position just as you are. For you, the Devatas become the Ishvara. And you being the Jiva always seek their blessing. Hope you're getting it right. So you are the Jiva, you pray, you worship, you offer rituals, everything, so that Devas can give you something in return. And they are very happy to give you this because they want you to be serving them all the time. If you don't serve them, then who is going to serve them? That's why in the one of the other statements you see that a person who thinks he is a Jiva is always indebted to the Lord. Sadeva Nara Brahma Yata Devanam Pashuhu. That means what? Sadeva Nara Brahma. So the Naraha will always be a servant to the Lord. Just as Yata Devanam Pashuhu. So you will be a Pashuhu to the Devatas. So the verse says Ahamatmana Anyosi. Ahamatmana Chanyosi Upaste Anya Devata Sadeva Nara Brahma Yatha Devanam Pashuhu. So the person who thinks that Ahamatmana Cha Anyosi. So the person who thinks he is not the Atma, he is a Jivaha, they worship Upaste Anya Devataha. This is not from this book or from this text, it is from another text. It's called Brahmanu Chintanam. So, in that case, Sadeva Nara Brahma Yatha Devanam Pashuhu. So, a person who is not looking at himself as the Atma will always be indebted to the Lord. There will always be the Vedaha. Swagata Vedaha, Jati Vedaha, Vijati Vedaha. So, three different types of differences are there. They always continue to exist. Then the objection also raised by the Purva Paksha is, in samsara there are many jivas. Like we are all jivas here. We've got 7 jivas here. 3, yes, the 7 jivas are there. And all jivas are looking different. Different locations, different size, different gender, knowledge-wise different, wealth-wise different. Everything is different. So how can you equate these jivas to an Ishvara who is supposed to be the whole? Got the point? How can a person with so many limitations a person has got, you can say that it's just a Shruti saying, I accept. You are saying Shruti says like this. But in reality, we are all so many people. They are poor, they are rich people, they are knowledgeable, they are Ajnanis. They are of different gender, different caste, different profession. So many things are there. So many jivas are there. And every jiva has to think like this. It's a mammoth task. It is not possible for everyone to think like this. Thereby, we do not accept this view as correct. So this is not our view, it is their view. Okay. Because the jiva also undergoes or comes in existence because of various aspects. Right from the beginning, when the conception happens, the Upanishad says or details very clearly how all these things are preordained. Depending upon, this Upanishad called Garbha Upanishad, which we don't have anymore. There are missing manuscripts, many pages are missing. Because when the British took over, when they left, they destroyed so many things from here. And there are some Upanishads we don't have any continuity. But whatever we have, it is said in the Upanishad that it details the whole process about how the jiva really, the child really understands its previous birth in the womb of the mother itself. it remembers at a time, even the Om Mantra, it remembers its previous birth also. And it makes a vow that when I come out of this difficult, place I'm living there, because it is a place which is difficult, narrow, very narrow. So many, things come and get dumped on it. Right? All uppu, puli, karam, everything get dumped on it. Ice cream comes. So the jiva is always in this position of, wanting to get freedom. So even in the womb of the mother also, it is trying to get out of that. It's trying to look for freedom, for happiness. But it is not able to find happiness at the moment. So it is reconciled to the fact that this is my life. This is what I am here. And in that moment, it remembers all the previous births, etc. And it remembers that, okay, I have gone through this. This is my previous birth, etc. And when I come out, I need to contemplate, I need to realize the truth. This is the pre-jiva, coming into existence. But due to the power of Maya, when the child comes out, everything is erased. Its past is erased. It forgets its existence as Ishvaraha, as a Bhagavan. It continues to start living a life of an independent jiva. So many people are born, so many children are born, so many, they grow. All these people come from different types of, place and different birth they got. And depending upon the karma of the father and the mother and where they live and how they, what state of the mind they are at the time of giving birth, it determines the child also. A male child, a female child, or a in-between transgender is described, it's very elaborately described in the Upanishad. So, we don't have to go into this. What it says here, the Purva Paksha has read all these things. He is not a person who is not a Ajnani. He is somebody who is searching for these things, and he quotes from these Upanishads. And he says that there are so many jivas which are of different nature. How can you equate jiva to be Ishvara? So we are not able to accept this fact. This is all the objections raised. So Adi Shankara refutes each of them point by point. So the first point he refutes saying here, the jiva is not part of Ishvara, is negated just by saying it is because of your ajnana, it is because of your knowledge. The knowledge is not complete. If you had full knowledge about what is jiva, how do you define jiva? If you are able to understand and you have studied the Shruti properly, you would know that the jiva is just made up of the body maintenance complex with the ahankara. Hope you are following, right? So the jiva is nothing but a combination of the body maintenance complex combined with the ahankara. So the I concept or the ahankara is very much there, because of which the doership comes into existence. Because the doership is there, the enjoyership comes to existence. And whenever you have a doership and enjoyership, you always have results. Papam and punyam comes to existence. Papam and punyam continues to be there for the person, which results in next janma. Next janma, again you become the same jivaha. Again you have the same philosophy. So this will continue. So Adi Shankara says, I'm not denying your perception because you do not know what you're talking about. You do not understand what Ishvara is. You do not understand what Jiva is. So it is possible that you have the view, but it is not a correct view. So the correct view is that Jiva is only a manifesting medium. The manifesting medium cannot be taken as the truth. The source of the manifestation has to be taken into existence. Just as when you look at yourself in the mirror reflects your personality or your nature, or your how you look like. On a particular day, you may look very bad, or you may have different clothes, you look different personality you have. So the jiva itself, which you see in the mirror, or your own reflection you see in the mirror, can be different every day. Someday you will feel very tired. Someday you will feel, in a different dress. So all these are possible even in a particular day, in a particular hour also it is possible. But you never take that as a truth, correct? You never believe the reflection as a truth. Do you? You don't. Because the reflection, you already know that is only a mirror. The mirror is only reflecting what it is. But I am not the mirror itself. I am not the reflection itself. So you never take yourself as the reflected medium. But what do you say? That I am this. So without the mirror also, I do not go anywhere. I am still there. So in the same way, the jiva also is a reflection of the consciousness, but with the upadhis. So Ishvara also is a manifestation of the same consciousness with the upadhis or the manifesting medium. So just as you resolve the reflection in yourself, same way you should also resolve all the jivas also into Ishvara. So this is why he refutes the first point, saying that this is actually not valid because you have a different perception of what is jiva and what is Ishvara. Then the second point is Ishvara can become a samsari. So jiva is already samsari because you have a limited view about jiva. Ishvara also is samsari. So he refutes, saying that I already explained to you that jiva is samsari because of the view that he or she is a limited person. He is limited by so many factors. So thereby, when you are a limited person, you can only be or achieve only so many things. And it is because of the upadhis which are there. So upadhi means like the physical body. So with your physical hand you can do certain things. With the mind you got, you can only do some limited things. So this is the limitation of the upadhi, not the limitation of the actual manifestation itself, the conscious itself. And they all vary. So every person has got different strength, different mindset, everything is they all vary. But there is one thing which is not varied or consistent in everything is this Atma or the Chaitanyam or the consciousness, awareness. It's all one word, but different meanings. All of them are same, they just say the same thing. But it doesn't mean that Atma is different, awareness is different, Ishvara is different, conscious different, consciousness. They're all only pointed only one thing. There may be many names, but names itself doesn't mean they are multiple Atmas or multiple consciousness. So the jiva is a samsari because it is associated with the limited view, and thereby it is undergoing the pains and pleasures. The sukha dukkham, the cold, heat and pain, everything is undergone by this person. But that is only limited to the upadhis. The physical body which is there, the body mind sense complex is one through which you experience these things. The body does not complain that I am tired. Does it complain? Does it speak to you to say that I am tired? No. It doesn't have speech. It doesn't come and tell you that, but you perceive, you know that you are tired because there is another power which is pointing to you that yes, the body is getting tired, I need to rest. So the body is illumined, the physical deha is illumined by another power which reflects the status of the body. The same way, the mind which is reflecting the sensory power, sense organs, is also reflected by the consciousness. So the mind also doesn't have independent existence. The sensory powers also doesn't have independent existence. Sensory organs also doesn't have independent existence. Thereby, all these things are not really the truth. It is only empirical truth or relative truth. Satyam is only the consciousness or the Atma. So thereby, the physical body with all the upadhis, etc., is the one who is enjoying or undergoing these pains and pleasure. The Atma, the consciousness, because being Akarta, being the Abhokta, or not the enjoyer, not the doer, is not having any pain and pleasure. So he cannot be a samsari. Atma cannot be a samsari. Jiva can be a samsari because of the wrong notion. So he is dismissing that argument also. Then the last refutation comes. Samsara is comprised of number of jivas. There are so many jivas which are there. He said, we are not worried about the number of jivas or millions or trillions or billions. You do not have to worry about those things. They will still be there. There will always be jivas around in this world or in this srishti, as long as they think they are limited by their bodies. Hope you're getting. As long as you have identification with the physical body mentions complex, you will continue to be the same person. It doesn't matter what you do. You will not be different from any animal or anything which is existing there or any plant, because they also have existence. They also grow, they also live, they eat, they survive, they die one day, they also propagate. If you have a small plant also, a small plant will grow seeds, right? And the seed will burst from the same seed, another plant will grow next to that. So it keeps propagating, it keeps growing. Old plant dies, new plant comes up, another plant comes, another plant dies. This is a niti for the whole thing. So what is different between them and us? So if you take that view, then every srishti in this universe is also undergoing the same amount of pain and pleasure change. So you'll have to remove that aspect cognitively. So if you remove the aspect cognitively, then you are left only with the Shuddha Chaitanyam or consciousness. It is only a understanding. It is only a cognitive understanding, not a physical understanding. You can never physically arrive at the Atma. So I always keep saying in the class or from the class that Atma Anubhavaha or Atma experience is not possible. There are still some people who keep searching for the Atma Anubhavaha. So once you arrive at the truth, then you do not need to search for anything more. You just accept the ownership, and that's all it is. So Adi Shankara refutes all the arguments because he quotes from various Shrutis. So we got quotation from Taittiriya Upanishad, quotation from Garbha Upanishad, from Mundaka Upanishad, Kena Upanishad, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. So there are so many Upanishads quotes in the whole Bhashyam. For a person who is limited by the upadhis, there is always a bhayam. Atatasya bhayam bhavati. Means there is always a fear of limitedness, a fear of death. Because all these things are going to go one day. There will be, I will not be there one day. So the fear will be there for the person. But when a person resolves the fear, then there is no more fear for the person. Na vibeti kadachaneti. Anandam brahmano vidvan na vibeti kadachaneti. So in Taittiriya Upanishad, there is Brahmananda Valli that says Anandam brahmano vidvan na vibeti kadachaneti. So na vibeti, bihi means fear. Na vibeti means the person does not fear anymore. Kadachaneti. There is never a fear for the person who has this vision. Because Anandam Brahmano Vidwan. So he's understood what Ananda is. And he's understood what Brahma is. And he's a Vidwan. So when he's knowledgeable, he doesn't have to fear about this. So that is what is said here in Kshetram Kshetragya Chapimam Vidhi Sarva Kshetreshu Bharata. It's a it's a Mahavakyam. That is why I have to elaborate so many things. And in this elaboration, you would have come across, or you would have understood better. Already you understood before in chapter 2 and 3 in Sankhya Yoga and Karma Yoga about Atma and Anatma. And this only corroborates the same thing, and it gives elaborate commentary for this. So, next we go to number 3. Any questions on this? Have you understood this so far? Gopalji, you're okay?
Shankar, can you repeat the first objection? Kshetragya cannot be same as what?
Ishwaraha.
Huh?
Ishwaraha.
As Ishvara. Okay. That is the first objection. Okay.
First objection. The first objection is we cannot accept the fact that Kshetragya cannot is the same as Ishwara.
Okay.
Okay. So that is what, because of the wrong perception, everything after that is not able to validate because he is not equating himself as Ishvara. He is subject to the fallacies of the Jiva. That I am a limited person, I am a samsari, I am a person with different traits. I can never be one with Bhagavan. I'll always be a servant of the Lord. All the Dvaitic philosophy comes into existence. See, if your assumption itself is wrong. See, if you have a view that you cannot do this job, supposing you say that I cannot do this, then whatever maybe your knowledge you have, you will not be able to do it because you already have decided you cannot do it. You have already the view that you are incapable of doing this. So when you have the view like this, it's not possible. So if you're not willing to explore it, then everything after that you'll start superimposing on the other. Why I am not able to do it? Because I don't have the wealth. Because I don't have the wealth because I have other commitments. I have other commitments because I got some other priorities. So all these things starts to build. Right? So the same way, the starting point of the Purva Pakshi itself is wrong. And because the starting point is incorrect, everything below that is all wrong assumptions. So to correct that, Adi Shankara refutes one by one saying that this is your assumption, this is your wrong assumption. If your assumption itself is wrong, then you will never be able to arrive at the truth. Like in today's class also, in the Upanishads Shastra class, I told you that the student understands what is Atma. He understands Atma. He has arrived at the Atma saying that Atma is Akarta, Atma is Agrahyam, Apanipadam, Apranaha, Amanaha, correct? Shubhram, etc. He arrives at this. But he is still looking for the definition of Apranaha. When you already know that Atma is Apranaha, that is, he doesn't have prana at all. The prana itself is known through the consciousness. Correct? Consciousness is not prana. Okay, remember that. Consciousness is not prana. But every prana is consciousness. So this is to be understood. So by understanding this, you resolve all the pranas. Not only your prana, all the pranas which are all the jivas are resolved with the statement saying that all the pranas are only reflection of consciousness. But there are not multiple consciousness. Here what he says, there are multiple jivas existing here because of this wrong assumption. So when you start with the right perception, everything else becomes clear. So Adi Shankara Advaitis are very clear in the perception. They also have this wrong vision initially. But the Shruti corrects them step by step. That, see, your assumption is not correct. That is why repetition is there. Some people ask, why same thing is talked about in every Upanishad? Same thing is said in every. It's no difference. Can we not just study one Upanishad and just forget about it? No, it's not possible, because one Upanishad will say from a particular aspect of that. But unless you understand the whole, part of it, understanding will give you part knowledge. When you understand the full picture, everything understood clearly, then you will not have any room to have any negative opinion or negative formation of anything. So that is why, and the subject itself is very difficult. See, the subject is about this understanding of the Atma, the consciousness, which you cannot perceive, which you cannot experience, which you cannot touch, you cannot feel, yet it is there. So how do you perceive a thing which is not there? So you have to understand only by a process of deduction. But deducing from something, only you can arrive at it. And once you arrive at it, you do not go beyond that. You do not again try to find something this. There are many people who are here, who are this, they arrived at truth, but still they are waiting for this experience. See, I don't know how I can express this. I'm looking for that experience. So they go and search for this Ananda. You cannot find it. Because happiness itself is the personality, our own personality, our own nature, Swarupam. So you cannot find anything anymore than that. So, let's look at the next one, verse number 3. Very long Bhashyam. I summarized it to the extent what I can. So now, in verse number 3 to 6, the Bhagavan explains the Kshetraha, means the field, by the constituents or how it is made up of. So, tat kshetram yaccha yadrik chaha, tatresham yaccha yadrik chayat adhikari yatascha yat sachayo yat prabhavaccha tat sat samas tat samasena me shrunu. So, tat kshetram yaccha yadrik yad adhikari yatascha yat. So, tat kshetram yaccha yadrik chayad vikarihi. That's not yad vikarihi. Yad vikarihi yatascha yat. Sachacho yat prabhavascha tat samasena me shunu. Listen to me. So it says, what is the kshetraha? Or the kshetra means what? What nature it is. So tat kshetram yat means that kshetram, what it is. And yadrik means what it is made up of, or what nature it is. And yad avikarihi or yad vikaraha. So yad vikarihi, vikara means modifications. So every kshetram has got modifications. And yataha cha yat, from where it comes. And yet prabhavaschaha. So the word yat means that which is of glory, that which comes from which place, that is made up of what is. I'll explain to you. Please listen. Shunuhu. So now he explains. First, he's given the vision. Kshetram kshetragya chapimam vidhi. He has given the vision. Now he says, what is Kshetraha has to be understood. See, you cannot arrive at the Kshetragyaha without knowing what Kshetram is. You can never arrive at, if I tell you that you are the Brahman, if I tell you, you are the consciousness, you may believe me because I am saying this. But you always have lingering doubt. See, I am consciousness, but you do not know why you are consciousness. Do not know, because you need to arrive at the truth of consciousness by arriving at what is not the consciousness. You can only arrive at the truth by what is not the truth. It's the same thing in any field also. If you want to come, say, to anything you want to analyze, what do you do first? You first analyze all those things which are there, out there, correct? Then you say, you take all the points that cannot be true. It is not correct. So you remove one by one all those things which are not applicable for your argument. Because you already have a vision, or you have that this is what I feel is correct. So you have an assumption, anumana. Anumana means inference. You already have inferred that this is what it is. So now if you want to prove your anumanam is correct, how do you do that? You have to first baseline understand what is anumanam based on. Correct? Inference. So you have multiple inferences, multiple different things which is contributing to the inference. Now if you directly say that this is what my inference is to somebody, he may not accept. So how do? You logically analyze to say that this inference is based on so many factors. And these factors have actually analyzed them individually and have resolved them, saying that this is not relevant or not important, or this is contributing to this argument, and thereby I am left with a few things. Same way here also, Kshetram is being defined as this. Then he says the Kshetram is made up of what? Of what nature it is. Yadrik cha. So Yadrik cha means that which is made up of what? Then Yad Vikarihi. Vikaraha means modification. So every Kshetraha, every field is subject to modifications. Like our physical body has also got 6 different modifications. Asti, Jayate, Vardate, Viparinimate, Apikshate, and Pranashyate. So these are Vedantic jargons. Asti means it comes into existence. It's there. Asti. Then from the consciousness aspect, it comes into Jayate. It comes into existence. It gets born. So Jayate. Then Vardate. Vardate means it starts to grow. So from a small embryo, it starts to grow inside. It becomes, 3rd month, 6th month. And by the time it is the 7th month, it is already has identified itself as the jiva. It is a full born. It has got everything functioning child. 7th month itself in the womb, it's got the intelligence, the mind, the memory. It understands everything already. And the 9th month, so of course the baby comes in, and then it grows out of food, vardate, it increases. So we go through childhood, then balyaha, then kaumaram, yauvanam. So they're all different stages. A small child, a small boy, then a youth, then into adulthood, then jara, become old. So these are all vardate, you grow. Then apikshate. So after growing also, sometimes you start to come down, you become an old person. So this every time there's a growth, there's also a stage of coming down. Then finally, pranashyati, then you leave this world. So every living being, every kshetraha, anything which you see here is subject to these modifications. Suddenly one tree will appear from nowhere. And a tree will grow suddenly. It will give you fruits, you'll enjoy all the fruits of action, everything will be there. Then after some time the tree also will start to dwindle. The tree will go, another tree will come. So this is the nature of the Kshetraha. So the physical body also the same thing. So understanding this is important. That's what it says here. Understand what it is made of. What is the Kshetraha? That is Tat Kshetram Yat. Then Yadrik, in that, what nature it is. Yen Yad Vikarihi, or what modification does it go through. Then Yat Prabhavaschaha. So what is the glory of that? Of the Kshetragyaha. So the word Sachayaha. Sachayaha, there's a word called Sachayaha Samasenaha. So the word Sachayo talks about the Kshetragyaha. So the Kshetragyaha Yat Prabhavaschaha means Prabhavascha means the Shreyas or the glory of the Kshetragyaha. Tat Samasena means in totality. Samasenaha means in total. Me Shrunuhu, listen to me. So first line talks about the Kshetraha. The second line talks about the Kshetragyaha. It is know the difference between the two. Know what is Kshetram and what is Kshetragyaha and the glory of the Kshetragyaha. Is it clear? So in verse number 4, he says, Rishir Bahuda Geetam, Chando Bir Vivitai Pratak, Rishir Bir Bahuda Geetam, Chando Bir Vivitai Pratak, Brahma Sutra Padaschaiva, Hetumat Bir Vinischitaihi, So, Rishihi. So it says Rishihi Bahuda means by the Rishihi. Bahuda means by many ways. Bahuda. So Rishis by many ways Geetam means they have narrated or they have sung the praise of this Mahavakyam or this particular aspect. And in Chandaha, Chandobihi, Chandas means, Chandaha means Vedas. So Chandobihi, Vividaihi Pritak. Vividaha means in variety of ways. So Chandaha here means the Vedas. And the Vedas itself has got many Upanishads and many things. So Vividaihi. So different ways this has been explained by the Rishis. So Rishibir Bahuda Geetam Chandobihi Vividai Pratak means distinct. So Pratak means distinct. How this is distinct from the Kshetram. And who has said this? Rishibir Bahuda. So all the Rishis which are there before, or many people, seers, wise people, have always said that this is distinct from the Kshetraha. And this is corroborated in all the Upanishads, all the Vedas which are of this different nature. So we have 10 major Upanishads for which Shankara has written Bhashyam. And all the 10 Upanishads have got different ways of unfolding the truth. The truth is only one. Just as there are many rivers coming from different sources. Each river has got its own name. Each river has got its own flow, pravaha, and its own attributes. can be ferocious, it can be silent, it can be sweet, it can be color-wise different. So they all come from different aspects. Ultimately, when they come to the ocean, they lose their identity called the rivers. One may say, Tungabhadra, Tamaravarni, Ganga, Yamuna, Saraswati, Narmada, Sindhu, Kaveri, all these things are names. But all these rivers do not have existence when they come into the ocean. When they come and mix into the ocean, you do not know whether the ocean meets the river or the river meets the ocean. Is that right? Can you say that the ocean comes and meets the river? When the flow, ultimately all those things flow into the ocean, there is no identity between the ocean and the river anymore. There is only water. So the river leaves its name. We no longer called Ganga anymore, and we only saw Ganga Sagara. Because the Ganga also finally resolves in the Bay of Bengal. It finally goes and resolves. Or even the mighty Ganges also loses its existence called the Ganges. All along it flows as a Ganga. It is perennial Ganga, the Vedas. But even the Vedas also finally belong to the Bhagavan. It resolves also in the Ishvara. So we are able to see all these things in geography, etc. But we are not able to accept this in truth. So the Veda just points out. So he says, Rishibhir Bahuda Geetam Chando Bihi Vividai Pritak. So Pritak means they are distinct from the Kshetram and Kshetragyaha. They have been distinct, they have been said by the many rishis before and many ways in the Vedas. Then Brahma Sutra Padaschaiva. So Brahma Sutraha, and so Padaha means statement. So Brahma Sutraha Padaschaiva. So as outlined in the Brahma Sutra also. So here he quotes the importance or the support given for the statement is from the rishis who have been there. The Vedas which are there, the many Upanishads which are there, Brahma Sutraha which is already been there. So Brahma Sutra Padaschaiva Hetuhu means the support, Hetuhu, reasoning. Hetu Mad Bihi means those who are endowed with reasoning has been able to understand this better. Hetu Mad Bihi Nischataihi means with clearly. So without any doubt. So Nischitaha means doubtless. So without any doubt, they have been explained very clearly in the Brahma Sutra Bhashyam. That is why one has to study three things. Prasthana Trayam. So the study is not complete unless you finish the Bhagavad Gita, Upanishad and Brahma Sutra. So these three things has to be studied. It is not just not enough to study Bhagavad Gita and just leave it as it is. But Bhagavad Gita only brings you a bird's eye view of all those things. It gives you a very, very high level view of all these things. It doesn't go deep as the Upanishad or the Brahma Sutra. So the first step would be to read the Bhagavad Gita, then go into the Upanishad, then the Brahma Sutras. So you do not start the other way. You do not start with the Upanishads directly. That is why in our study also, we always start with the introduction to Vedanta, then fundamentals of Vedanta, then Prakarana Grantaha, then the Bhagavad Gita, then the Upanishad, after the Brahma Sutra. So these three things has to be studied by the person in the lifetime of the person. Then only you will be able to understand all these things in total. It is like, studying for medicine. If you study 1 year of medicine, do you think you will be able to be a doctor? You cannot. If the course says a 6-year course, you have to study for 6 years, and you have to study a variety of topics, we study that. So you have to be a qualified doctor means you have to study so many topics. There we study because you want to be a doctor. You want to become a doctor, you study, you put in hours, you become apprentice, you work there, you gain knowledge, etc. And then you get there. But the same thing is said that to be free, you have to study these things. See, it is all difficult, not possible. Second, this itself is a struggle for me to find time to study Bhagavad Gita. Forget about the Upanishad, because it is not that important for us. Whereas what we say is that this is the most important thing we should know. So one has to give equal amount of effort for this, just as you study for any other subject where you become, to be called a wise person or a qualified doctor. You study 1 or 2 years, you cannot be called a qualified, you could be called a quack. You'll be just somebody who is just giving some medicine here and there, and nobody will actually trust you with anything. So the same philosophy is said here that Rishibir Bahuda Geetam Chandobihi Vivadai Brahma Sutra Padaschaiva Hetuhu Hetumat Bihi Nishchitaihi. So the reasoning is very clear and it is confirmed that this is the way one has to do this, and this is the way one has to understand the Kshetram Kshetragya Vibhaga Yoga. Is it clear? So the Bhagavan is actually insisting that this emphasis is given here. Without this, you will not have the clarity. He's not going to talk about Brahma Sutram, he's not going to talk about Upanishad, he's not going to talk about anything. He's just going to say that these are all there. So you'll have to listen to me about these things. So when you go to Pravachanam, etc., Kada Kala Chibam, he talks about Ramana Pratabhishekam. And they talk about general Rama Rapidindar, he'll talk about it. Unless you go to specific aspect of that, then only it will become an individual topic by itself. So you can do Ramana Pattabhishekam in 3 hours. Correct? You can complete the whole Katha in 3 hours. You can finish it. But it is not that easy to understand the whole philosophy behind it. So many rituals are there, so many mantras are there, so many things are being done there. You will understand each of them, what is being done there. That is what is said here. And the Bhagavad Gita gives you a vision, it gives you that this is what it is. Listen to me. So, Shrunuhu. So, next class, we are going to see from verse number 5, where it talks about the eightfold Prakriti. So, first he starts with the Prakriti or the nature. So, as he told before, he is going to talk about the Kshetram first. Then the Kshetragya is arrived at the way by which you remove the Kshetragya from the, then arrive at the Kshetragya. So Kshetram is being defined first. Then using the definition of Kshetram, you understand what is Kshetragya. Is it clear so far? Any questions? Hema ji, so far you're clear? Okay, Hema ji, so far? Shrikant ji, any questions?
No, sir, I'm good.
You're following? Okay. Gopal ji, you're okay so far? Radha ji, any questions from your side?
No, sir, it is very clear.
Sridhar ji, you're okay? You're following so far?
Yeah, yes, I am.
Okay, that's good.
No problem.
Suresh, you're okay? Uma, Singapore, have you got anything? You're okay so far? Okay. So we will stop the class here for now, and we will, next class, we will see what he talks about the Prakriti. So as I told you, the chapter 13 is a very important topic, very important chapter, because it talks about the Asi Padartha Lakshaha. or Tattvamasi is broken into Tat, Tvam. We talk about Tvam in the beginning, first 6 chapters, you as individual. Then it talks about Tat, Padalakshaha. The Bhagavan is being explained as who is Ishvara is explained in the Bhagavad Gita from 7 to 12. He talks about himself, the glory, Vibhuti, etc. Vibhuti Yoga, everything he talks about. Now he talks about the combination of the Tat and Tvam is called Asi, meaning the union between Jiva and Paramatma. So the next 6 chapters, chapter 13 to 18, is also, everything is important in Bhagavad Gita. Actually speaking, there is nothing which is not important. You cannot chuck away a single verse from this whole thing. Everything has got a meaning, and you have to understand in detail every meaning of what it is. So 13 to 18 compresses the union between Jiva and Paramatma, or Jiva Paramatma Aikyam is talked about here. So we'll see more of this as we go through our journey in the Bhagavad Gita Pravaha. Om Purnamadah Purnamidham Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tatsat Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Namaste and Shubhratri to all of you.